Good morning, everybody. As everybody's 6 feet away, I'm going to take my mask off for this interview because people say it's hard to understand me sometimes in the press conference. Thank you all for being here today. We normally have these press conferences right after a city council meeting, but last week, after the council meeting on Wednesday, we had the owners of Lee Mall here to open the time capsule. Mr. Hull from Hull Properties Group out of Augusta, Georgia was here with his Vice President for Government Relations. And during the time we would have normally had this press conference, we had a meeting with the two of them with several business leaders and city, county, and state government officials here as well to talk about their vision for the mall. One of the things that I was encouraged by when he told me, and he mentioned this a couple of times, he mentioned it to the group, and he also mentioned it to me afterwards, was in all the towns that they have gone to in the past to discuss refurbishing a mall like this, that they've never had somebody from all those different groups. We even had representatives from the school board here, and he was very impressed by the fact that Columbus was able to get together city, county, state, and school board officials here for that meeting, and it went extremely well. And there'll be more information coming out about what their hopes and plans are for Columbus. But because of that, we didn't have the meeting that we would have normally done, the press conference, and I think most people would have loved to have had this one the day after. But it's probably worked out better to do it today because I have announced to the media, I just handed out, that I have officially vetoed both actions taken by the city council last week. I got both vetoes into Pat Mitchell yesterday under section 2.39 of the Charter and General Ordinances of the City of Columbus and Mississippi Code 2817. With these vetoes, I also gave an explanation for my veto. All the members of the city council have these in hand. I have spoken to all of them today with the exception of one, and I did leave him a message and hope to visit with him soon, explaining, letting them know that I did veto their actions and that there was an explanation why, and I look forward to visiting with him about it. Contrary to what some might think, I have a very good relationship with all the council members. I know that they are good people who want to make a difference in this city. I think that it is important to know that we can disagree without being disagreeable. And I have admitted that as a new mayor, maybe I haven't always communicated as clearly as many think that I should, but I am working very hard to correct that. What I want the citizens of Columbus to know and the council members to know is that this is not personal in any way. This is my true belief in what is most important for the city. This is not as it has been portrayed by many, as a way to be negative and to go back. I think as good citizens of the community, we should be able to look at issues like this and to help try to move the city forward. The thing that I was most disappointed about was that it was cut down without even discussion or even a time frame for the citizens and for the council to ask me more questions and to actually call the forensic auditors to talk to them. I put all this information out there so that they could communicate with them. And I thought a week's span of time would be a good time to do that. I find that is a great way of communicating, actually. But if my failure to let the council know every single thing that I'm working on or my ideas, saying it directly to them, was a hindrance for that, I apologize. That was not my intention. Secondly, it wasn't just the forensic audit that I vetoed. I also vetoed the motion to move forward in hiring a COO, CFO, and clerk immediately. I think that is a very unwise decision. from the reviews that I've had with employees, looking back at how our books have been handled, even after these new policies have been put in place, after the embezzlement, we still haven't gotten caught up from that. We're still working on an audit. We've had good people trying to do the work, but it has not been done for whatever reason. And we can't continue to move down that road. If we go and rush and hire positions that I think are not exactly the positions that we need to move the city forward without any discussion, I think that's problematic. Now, am I trying to make the council agree with what I want to hire? No. I'm trying to give them an opportunity to review what I've been working on and make a decision then. But these two decisions that they made cut that process out. And I don't take vetoing things lightly. But I think both of those were poorly made decisions, and in my opinion, and I'm going to continue to talk about to the council with this, it seemed to me it was more of a personal reason than for the right reasons, which is for the citizens of Columbus. Now, there have been many things written and said about that. There have been accusations that I was talking down to the council, which was never never what I was doing. I never would do that. I would ask you to ask them individually, have I ever talked down to them at any time? I'm confident they would say no. I've asked their opinions. I'm asking the opinions of other politicians in town. I'm talking to citizens from all walks of life. I would dare say there's anybody in town who talks to as many people as I do. I dare say there's anybody else in town that goes into many neighborhoods as I do. And from my understanding, from the people that I've talked to, not just during the campaign, but since I've been in office, they want a forensic audit. Now, are they all going to be as loud as the local media or as people on Facebook? No, because they're afraid that they may get harassed. And I think that people know that what we're seeing in our national politics is very different than what's going on in the local community. And so I'm asking people to take a deep breath, not try to circumvent the process, because I will say this, and I'm looking straight in the camera, I'm not giving up on this. I will talk about this for 4 years if I have to. And I feel that strongly about it. And let me say again, clearly into the camera, we're not focused on anybody. We're not trying to, come on in, Pierre. We're not trying to cause anyone to feel like they're being sought after or accusatory of anything. But until we are in a place where we can go through a process and get the community to feel more comfortable with where we are, I think that's a positive thing. I will continue to, and what I will do as we go through this process is I will continue to, as I can, release information to the board and to the community as to why I think a forensic audit is necessary. There's vast numbers of reasons. I don't want to go into them all today, but one of them I kind of alluded to was that the things that the city had been told to fix since the embezzlement, all those procedures have not been fixed. Now, I don't know why. We're trying to figure it out. I don't think anybody did it intentionally. What I think is, the reason I'm talking about a restructure, there's a way that we can restructure the positions of the city and have particular people in those positions with experience in certain areas that can correct those. I mean, this assumption that this is, I got you, or I'm looking for you, or is just not who I am. And people who know me well know that. But unfortunately, in today's society and politics, that's how things are going. Let me be clear on this too. I have no political agenda. I don't even know if I'll run for mayor in 4 years. It does not define who I am. I mean, I have no reason to do this except that I'm honestly trying to do what is best for the city and the citizens. And I have invited every person that's been negative to me about this to come and sit down with me and let's talk about it eye to eye. We can agree to disagree. Pierre just walked in. Pierre and I were laughing and talking on the phone earlier. He's a good guy. We just happen to disagree on this topic right now. That's why I wanted to give it more time for Pierre to look at this, for him to call and talk to the folks that came in and presented, to talk to his constituents. That's why I did it the way that we did, to have a whole time frame between the votes so people could go and come back and get the information. As I said, I feel so strongly about this that I'll talk about it for 4 years if I have to. But again, it's not because I'm going after any one individual or trying to point a finger at anybody. I don't want to do that. What good would that do? But I think that there are enough people that I have talked to from every walk of life that have been up here that aren't going to get on social media and scream about it. They're not going to talk to the media about it, but they want this forensic audit. And I think if nothing else, hopefully nothing major will be found. But at least it will clear the air. Now that we've gone through this process of the things that I've vetoed, where we've shut it down and don't want to move forward at all, it's caused another cloud. That just inflames the conspiracy theory people out there. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. You've not once ever heard me point to any former official of this city and say anything negative. Not once have I stood up here and said that. Do I have concerns about the cities, how the city's been run at times? And I've said this before, not just the last administration, but the ones prior to that. I mean, there's always ways to do things better, right? And that's what I'm trying to do. I want to do long-term, short-term plans. I'm a new mayor. I've been in, yesterday was 100 days. Like I said earlier, I'm going to continue to try to learn how to work with the council and keep them involved in a way that doesn't break any laws. Pierre had to remind me one time. I sent out an email to the group and he said, "You forgot to mention, do not respond to this." And then he sent the act at the bottom, right? To remind us. I mean, that's what happens. And I was just in a hurry that day when I was sending it and forgot. And it was about, maybe going back to 4 days for the city employees after we couldn't do the pay raise. I thought maybe that was something we should look at. And sent it out and got that right back. Good for Pierre. That's what we got to do. So if that explains a little bit of why I'm a little hesitant, and if I talk to Pierre today after this meeting and somebody says something about it, and then somebody's going to say, well, why is he talking to him and not to the rest of us? It's not as easy as you might think, guys. And I'm learning. I'm far from perfect. So that's what I wanted to do today, is to let you know why I vetoed these. It's not out of anger or resentment to them, but it's for the fact that I truly believe, as deep as it can go in my soul, that this is the right thing to do. And it'd be a lot easier just to ignore it. It'd be a heck of a lot easier. But just from the things that I have seen, the things that I have read, talking to the forensic auditors, talking to our accountants that we have now, there are enough things there, enough irregularities, that we need to take a look at. City employees used to have credit cards. They took them all away. There's all kind of policies like that have been an issue that we've never looked at closely. And again, that's not to get anybody in trouble, but it's to make people understand, because there's still a concern within the city employees is, why can't they have a credit card? Well, if we don't look at these things and discuss them, we're not going to be able to explain to people why they can't do it. There's good practices and there are bad practices. There's, people who are intentionally breaking the law, and then there are people who make mistakes. We've got to get solid policies in City Hall. And as long as I'm in this office, I'm going to be able to do it. I don't have all the knowledge to do that. We need to work with the experts to do it. Now, the other question is this. There was a comment on the fact that if people were going to give money to this, why wouldn't they give it to other better causes? Well, that's an individual's right. And I would encourage people to do that. My background is in fundraising, and I believe in philanthropy. This is not a philanthropic matter. These are concerned citizens, and it's not fair to try to pigeonhole the people who would like a forensic audit, or at least the people that people perceive or think want to, because they're the ones that are the loudest. It's not fair to put them in a hole, a particular group. I promise you, looking at this camera again, straight on, I have had people from all walks of life, at all ages, at all levels of income, say to me, Mr. Mayor, we need a forensic audit. And there's enough of them that have said it that I'm not going to give up. Again, you're not going to see them on social media probably. You're not going to see them interviewed in the newspaper because they don't want the hassle. Because it is a hassle, because we've gotten to the point now where it's gotcha politics. Look what he said, inferring that he meant something that he didn't. It stops people from wanting to get involved. I went to a meeting where I was supposed to speak about 100 days. I had been invited to that meeting weeks before I went. And I decided while I was there that I would talk about this because it was the topic that was the most important. And, then it was portrayed that I went to a certain group in town and tried to, have people crawl all over their council members. That's not what I said. I said it's important for our citizens to get involved in the process. It's easy to sit back and complain. It's harder to go up and learn the facts. It's harder to call your council person and ask them why they voted a certain way. The council is encouraging me to talk to them more. I was encouraging them that day to speak to their constituents more. There's some that have told me that their constituents want to have town hall meetings in their communities to discuss this. I think that's a good thing. There are people who will tell you that that's a bad thing and we don't want to do this because of what it could potentially pull up in our community. They don't want to do this because it could potentially cause a rift in the city. I don't believe that. Again, I would argue that I have been in more neighborhoods and talked to more people than most anybody in this town. And what they have told me is we are better together. What they've told me is they're not interested in the politics that the people who live and breathe this stuff are interested in. They're interested in the fact that they want their taxpayers' dollars to be used properly. They want to know how it's being spent. They want to know that we're doing everything we can to make sure they have good public schools. They want to make sure we are doing everything we can to keep the streets in a way that's safe for people. I got emails yesterday from people who said that some of our speed bumps that are there to try to protect people are messing up people's cars. And then I found out from that we don't have a consistency of the height. We don't have a consistency of when they're painted and when they're not. Those are the things that people want me to be up here talking about, not vetoing stuff from a city council meeting that's not productive. And I love the other members of this council. I consider them friends. We don't hang out together all the time, but we talk and we respect each other. But I was elected, I believe, to try to change the direction of the city. And people thought that the direction that I talked about, while it may not be perfect, and I am surely open to adjusting, I think we're trying to move in a new direction in the city. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. I'm going to continue to respect them. I'm not going to let anybody in the media or anywhere else use my words against them. I'm not going to do it. I've been told by people, just ignore it, don't respond to it. But it hurts me deep down inside because it's not who I am. And it angers me that people will do stuff like that and not even talk to me or anybody else before they do. It's an assumption that they have, and it's unfair. So I'm trying not to go back at those kinds of things, but I would encourage everybody who writes about me or puts me on the camera, come visit with me. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out if what you're going to say I said is the kind of person I am. If I've said that comment in the way that you put it into the piece. I'm not trying to educate. I talk about educating myself all the time. Education is not a bad word. The statement I made that day to the reporter was, I was asked if I was going to try to find ways to communicate with the council better after this. And what I said was, yes, I need to work on those things. I need to do a better job of educating the council. And when I say that, I'm talking about educating myself on what's going on. I in no way meant that anybody was going to be sitting and listening to me educate them. But that's what it was portrayed in the media afterwards.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
You brought that up. When you say educate, in what aspect? Can you dive into that a little deeper?
Yeah, I can, Peter. That's a good question. What I meant was educate everybody on the situation of the finances of the city. Because, you know, in the role that Mark and I are in, being able to see the finances and those kinds of things that y'all don't work on in the budgeting process, seeing emails and things that y'all don't see on a regular basis. There's other information that we can share with y'all, and we will. So I don't see education as a bad word. At least I never would mean it that way, and I think you know me well enough to know that.
So when you say as far as, you know, I mean, I got that answer, but we had two companies that came here with two totally different quote unquote prices.
Mm-hmm.
And when the questions were asked, you know, one of them stated that there were 4 or 5 construction projects, and of which I asked, you know, are you able to give us those? Are you able to give us those projects? Or if you're not able to give us the projects, at least are you able to give us the years that project happened? And he was unable to do that. So when the second one got up, she only stated 3 construction things that. So there's like a misinformation. Like the one that wants to go deeper into it has 0 information, and the lady that has the least amount of the money, she had more information. So how can we, if we got the people that you just stated that you've been meeting with them, and there are a lot of things and issues that come across, why couldn't they come to us when they were asked?
Well, that's what I think they were trying to do here. I think the answer to your question is this: those were 2 very qualified firms that came in. We talked to them separately and at different times. Primarily, the people they talked to was me, Delia, and Mark. We talked to them on phone, by Zoom, and in person. You asked that question of the guy that the first firm, you asked him which projects he was talking about, and a lot of where they gathered that information was reading past newspaper articles and things where people had asked concerns about certain projects, but they had not delved into it enough. He didn't feel comfortable listing them until he had more information. That's what he was trying to explain to y'all. That he had not looked at the numbers, and so he didn't feel comfortable doing that. When she showed her book, I slid it over to you right at the council meeting and pointed at the things she had listed because I knew you'd ask that question. She felt comfortable putting them in there, and so she did. But she did not list everything that had been talked about. Or what you want to do is, one of the things I think he was trying to avoid is kind of what happened. When you say certain things like that in meetings, people misinterpret what you're saying. He was trying to, and I'm speaking for him because I mean they came in. I didn't tell them what to say. I didn't tell them how to present. What I can say is that the firm in New Orleans, I think, does this type of work on a more regular basis than the firm in Jackson. Not saying they can't do it. What she was trying to do was come in, I think is what she explained, was she was trying to come in at what the lowest end would possibly be, but that she would have to come back. The other group was simply showing the high end. You know, and I had some people comment, well, you know, or somebody even wrote about it, that the fact that they were so far off that they obviously had not been given proper information. You know, that's an assumption. We did the same things we could when we could meet. The first time the group out of New Orleans was going to meet, they had to cancel because of the hurricane that came through. So that question, that's a good question, Pierre, and I think it makes people suspicious. And I promise you it's not. He simply did not want to put something out there that might not ever even be looked at. She listed things that very well could not be looked at, but it was already out there, so then people say, well, why did you list that if you weren't going to look at it? So what they were trying to do, taking 2 different approaches, is kind of talking things. And most of the stuff they mentioned about, I promise you, they found out about in newspaper. Now, they asked Delia about processes that happened with those things. You know, how do you do this? How do you do this? You know, what are the processes? There are certain processes you're supposed to do when you're outsourcing dollars to other organizations. And some of the questions she couldn't answer, and in the way she answered some of them, I think caused them to think, well, that's possibly something we should look at.
Well, one more question.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna leave it alone, not a report.
Yeah. You know, I always like talking to you, Pierre.
But seriously, wholeheartedly, I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people, it's like a 49, 51%, give or take with this audit thing. Are you wholeheartedly trying to gather information to better the city resources and the way make this city become the friendly city again, or are you seeking criminal activities? Because that's what a lot of people are telling me. That's what's going.
Well, I think a lot of people assume that just because, and let's just go ahead and put it out there, because I'm the middle-aged white guy that defeated the first African-American mayor, right? That's an easy assumption to jump to, you know? People out there want to compare me to Trump, which almost makes me want to vomit, okay? Yeah, I just said it. I could not be more further from Donald Trump than anybody. So my question, and yes, I am, Pierre, what happened in our budget this time? We thought we had $1.5 million that we did not. Does that not give people concern that maybe, we need to look at the positions that we have in City Hall? I'm just asking, let's look at it. I mean, so you tell me, why did you feel like, so you voted against it because they were so far apart in number?
I felt like it was not prepared.
Do you think I would do that? Do you think that I'm the kind of person that's just going to go after somebody for criminal activity?
I mean, I'm just getting to know you just like you getting to know me.
Have I ever given you any inclination that I'm that way?
I'm still getting to know you.
I would say that's not an answer. Well, after this meeting, I want you to let me know how I've done that, because I need to correct that if I've given that impression. But, I mean, what do you think? I mean, why would you mind if citizens paid for it? What's wrong with that?
I mean, they can spend their money where they want to spend their money in, but when you get to citizens, half of these same citizens that wants to give money for the forensic audit were the same citizens that complained about us raising the millage. Some of them were. Yeah. So if minor things like that, which makes the city, which funds the city by raising your tax, $27 on every $100,000, but now you got up to $275,000 that you just want to throw. We're not saying throw it out, but
and it may not have been that much.
That word throw. You want to give $275,000 to something that may or may not have some validity.
Well, I can assure you that, and you need to call these auditors and talk to them. You've got their numbers. And what they were trying to explain in that meeting, which was difficult to do, this is what concerned me, Pierre, is because I know y'all, but I felt like y'all were trying to show me we're a strong council, we can shut this down.
It's childish.
It is, but that's what a lot of people perceive that as.
And that goes back to the word you said, assumptions.
It is, it's assumptions. And what I have told y'all, right, from the beginning is, I think it's fine for us to be disagreeable. I mean, disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. And I would argue that the performance, I call it political theater, was if people were looking at investing in Columbus or moving to Columbus, that might give them pause. What gave me hope the next day was when we had the meeting with Mr. Hall, and he had said he had never been in a community like ours, and when I say ours, with a mall our size town, where he was in a meeting where there were city officials, county officials, state officials, and school board members. I think Columbus is still the friendly city. I know that there are people that say we're not anymore. I dispute that. I say go talk to people. Get out of the TV station, get out of the newspaper, get out of your business. Go talk to the people. Not just the ones that are firing up in your ear, because I know it's not fun. Poor Pierre is under fire. Go look at Facebook. Right? And a lot of that came from that meeting. I was totally stunned because there's a lot on Facebook. People tell me to stop looking at it, but maybe I should. But it is, and there are people are throwing stuff out there about let's have a rally, playing off of Slim's words, and silliness. But that's their right to do it, and I can't control it. And because somebody that does something like that happens to support me, doesn't mean I'm that kind of person. There are people who support you that you're not that kind of person. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I think that we are a friendly city. I think there are more of us that see the same than see different. I think the people that are saying that are watching the national news, the national media, and they're trying to pull that down on Columbus, and I just don't buy it. And I will tell you this, that I will not avoid any single person who wants to come and ask me the hard questions. Bring them. And at the end of the day, if we disagree, I will shake your hand and say thank you because I don't want groupthink around me. Maybe you can convince me that I'm wrong on this. But don't shut down the discussion. What good does that do? It gets us right here. Ooh, CBI. I'm sorry. I need to leave my hands down. Did that break everybody's ears?
No, you're good.
So I will, after I crash that, did it hurt it?
No.
Sorry, viewers. I will stop my animation, Pierre, and take questions. Yes.
I have several, if you'll indulge me. First of all, override of a veto only takes 4, right?
Correct.
Okay, so on this and the reorganization, on audit and the reorganization, how do you how do you get that vote? How do you build the consensus to keep it from being a 4-2 override?
I think I'm doing it today.
Okay.
I've called all of them, and I've talked to all of them but one, and I've left them a message. And I asked them to call me with the questions about it. And I'm asking citizens to give their input as well. So I think that's how I do it.
Well, okay, so the organizational chart, you had originally talked about unveiling that.
I will work with whoever the council decides to hire and at what position. And I will do everything I can to make those positions work. I will also continue to show them job descriptions that I think we need to move towards, and I will show them an org chart that I think we need to adopt. There is an org chart.
What's the status of that?
There's an org chart. I'm working on it. There's an org chart. It's almost finished. There's an org chart that I got from HR that went to the council before that they were never able to agree on. So there is none. There's not one. So I am working on getting that done. I got a little slowed down with this. I had to determine if I was going to veto or not. I didn't know immediately. I had to think this through. I had to talk to people. Pray. I'm a prayer. I pray. So that's how I think we'll get it done. And if they vote it down again, I'll still be their friend. I'll still talk to them, and I'll still bring it up again.
Is there room for negotiation on the organizational?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. There's room for negotiation on everything. Whoever said there wasn't? Have I ever said that? Then why would you ask?
That's a pertinent question.
Okay. Yes, there's room for negotiation on everything. It's not my way or the highway. That's not who I am. But what I will do, and if the council goes in a different direction, I will happily work the best I can with that along the way. And I will do what?
I'm glad you stated that because I had a constituent call me yesterday and she told me you need to do what the mayor says. So we had it's like, I'll be sure to vote my conscience.
Yes.
I'll let your council person know that you shared those same concerns, but
yes,
I do know that you. I'm talking. I do know that you stated that for all people to call their council people and express their concerns. But when this is my message to the people, know who your council person is. I'm available to take all calls because that's what I was elected to do. But if you're not part of Ward 4, it's hard for me to take into consideration your thoughts and votes because I represent Ward 4. And like I say, I'll be sure to relay those messages to your council person. But in my ward, I've only received 2 calls and both were against.
Have you seen any of your council people on Facebook? You need to look at those.
If they don't tag me, I don't see. I got like 5,000 Facebook
Yeah.
friends.
Call Julie Parker.
I will.
Okay.
I will.
Call Joe Shoemake.
But did you see the email that Bev sent out today?
I did, I read it, yeah, and I thanked
She's
her
not
for it.
for it as well. She's in Warford.
Yeah, she's talking about Beth Imes sent us an email this morning. She talked to Pierre, and she sent an email to me and the council saying that she is not for it. That's Beth Imes. And I know Beth very well, and I thanked her for those comments. I just happen to disagree with her on this. Beth also referenced in the email that she didn't think it was the friendly city anymore, or something to that effect, and I disagree with her on that. I think we're very friendly, but she's a good friend of mine. I've known her for years. She's very entitled to her opinion, Pierre, but you can't make a decision on two people calling you from your ward and that.
I'm just saying,
You
that's
really
all
can't.
we call.
Well, I mean, I would suggest you go out and talk to
Nobody's
them. I mean, or
Nobody's
have a
sharing
council, have a meeting in your ward. I know that the other council people have told me that people have reached out to them and they want to have a meeting. And I mean, I want to have meetings where people disagree with me, but y'all shut it down. You basically stop that conversation on assumptions. And
I think that's probably on both ends.
it is. Oh gosh, I'm looking in the mirror, dude.
John Cole taught me a great thing about assumptions.
Yeah. when I made the statement, when I talked about, having folks call their council people, what I was talking about was that there's a sense in Columbus where people are not involved, and they get their information from one or two places, and or they don't get it at all, or they just assume that they don't have a voice and there can be nothing done. And when I said that, I said I'm looking in the mirror, because I was like that way. I was that way for a long time. And if you change your vote on something, it doesn't mean you was a mistake the first time you voted that way. It means that you gathered more information and that you're open-minded and that you listen. And if somebody can convince me that this is wrong, I promise you I will come back up to this mic and say I'm taking my vetoes away. So help me get there, Pierre. Other council people, help me get there. Did you have any more questions?
I'm good.
You're good? Anybody else?
How long is Mike Barson gonna work?
Well, that's a very good question. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that was another thing that was just a tad bit concerning to me about trying to rush towards the permanent positions, is that we've got two very qualified people in both of those roles. Mike has agreed to do it, and we voted for, and he's done this before. This is not the first time that he's worked between the two. He is extremely knowledgeable on municipality accounting. Not everybody is. He has helped tremendously already since he's been in place. Corrections that he's made, mistakes that he's found, and he's just working part-time when he can. And we will report on those too. I would like to pay Mike something. He's coming up on retirement and that kind of thing, and he said no, because and one of the reasons he didn't want to do, I even tried to get him to apply, but he didn't want to get back into this. Yeah, Peter said I can see why. So part of what I'm doing is, with this restructuring, is there could actually be raises in there for people we already have in place. Because some of the things that I'm considering doing is there's some retirements coming up that you might not replace. There's some people that could potentially be moved in other positions. And that frees up money. We're looking at, we could potentially, like our director of HR is not, she's been here over 30 something years, she's not the highest paid director. Floored me. Okay? So the way I'm trying to restructure finance and administration would be having a chief administrative officer, or a COO, whatever title you want to call it, who has more accounting background than we've had in this position in the past. And then underneath that position would also be Pat, who is HR and payroll and benefits. Under that position would be like a director of finance, or going back to like a treasurer, secretary, clerk, like which most cities have. And that position would be primarily a strong accounting person. And then you would have the other clerk positions under that one, and then under Pat is the person that does payroll. I'm looking at trying to restructure all. We have nothing in place right now where we're doing inventory. We were told to get that under control before I got here. Guess how much has been done? Zero.
As far as paperwork or actually
Doing it.
Because I've seen fixed asset stickers out.
It is not. It is. Where'd you see them?
At all of the places. They have stickers with the serial.
Yeah, but there's been no. I mean, Delia was trying to do it. She didn't have time. She told us that.
So there's no kept record.
No.
Okay, but I'm saying they have been doing it. But,
There's no. It is not in the process that we were told to get it in. Not even close. Yeah. And I'm not pointing the fingers at anybody, and I'm surely not saying bad things about Delia. She was swamped. She told me that had she known the depths of the issues here, she wouldn't have taken the job. Call her and ask her. She's in West Point.
So to get back to Mike Burson, does he have an exit date or is it just until?
No, not anything solid, until we work through these and get somebody. He's willing to help as long as we need him to.
Okay.
I would not want this long term. I would like to have those job descriptions out ASAP and start, trying to recruit folks in. I mentioned before that, I'm sure council people have hopefully talked to people they think might be interested. I've tried to talk to people that I think might be, not that I think they're the person, I don't have anybody in mind. A lot of people would like to see Mark stay, that would be great. I would like to see Mark and Mike permanent candidates for those jobs, but it's not going to happen. And I would to tell our citizens to be thinking of people that they think would be good. Tell us how you think the structure should be. So if I've given anybody the impression that it's my way or the highway, then that's not the case. What I am is a thoughtful person that, trying to pull this together, but come up here and try to run City Hall one day and see how many things are coming at you at one time. I'm not making excuses. I signed up for the job. But I'm also not going to be, I'm not going to not do what I think is right because people think I'm not communicating properly. Anything else?
Well, I don't have a question. I just want to tell you my reasons.
Yes.
For putting the job descriptions back on the table. During the campaign season, we were the COO was retiring and we needed to find a COO. But before the actual election, we had already closed the application portal.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such not gonna say a ruckus or commotion, but it was to get that back open because that was a major role to fill, and the new administration should have a choice or a say-so in
Mm-hmm.
it. So if now we have a interim COO that basically said he was gonna be here for 3 months, but it ranged between 3 to 6 months, so he can leave any day now. And then we have a CFO who's volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
So we got 2 people in City Hall that's volunteering. So if these 2 people decide to leave, we will now be missing a COO, a CFO, accounts payable clerk. Those are 3 jobs that, needs to be somebody sitting in those seats. So if it was such an importance to open it, so, to find qualified people, then we need to already be in place of looking for these people, because if they leave all at the same time, who's going to do what?
Mm-hmm. Have they given you the indication they're going to do that?
I'd rather not say
Okay.
in this setting.
Well, let me answer that, Pierre, because there's been frustrations by the COO, the interim COO, I want to be very respectful of his time and his time here. He and I joked about 3 to 6 months. He, in a perfect world, would have liked to have been gone in 3 months. And I think maybe you and I have had this discussion, but maybe we haven't. You don't know what you don't know until you get inside. And I called early on to review all the job descriptions. And as we were doing the work and I was watching Mark and what he had to do and what we were finding during the budget process was one of the reasons that I felt, well, the first thing I asked for here when I got here was an org chart, and there was not one. And so if those were big concerns of y'all's, I wish you had called me, because I didn't, both of those gentlemen have told me they would never leave the city in a lurch, and I believe them. Everybody's replaceable. If they up and left, we could find an interim in here. The city's not going to fall apart. If it hadn't already, it's not going to. We could find people to come in and do those jobs. And I'm not completely inept. I could do a lot of it too. I just couldn't be able to talk to as many constituents as I have been. So I have no fears of that. Pat Mitchell is very qualified. I mean, she stepped in and done a lot. And I don't think she's been in the past really been in the, in the decision-making processes and those kinds of things. So this kind of stuff takes time. That's why I'm trying to do it the way, but I'm speeding it up. I had said that I would have it ready by the 11th was my goal. And I'm this close. I basically have the job description for what I would like to see is this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give them to y'all and to the public side by side with what's in place now. So you can see and what, I would like to see the salaries to be and that type of thing. So I promise it's coming. But I really don't think, and you can go and ask Mark and you can ask Mike, I don't think they're gonna leave us in a lurch. But there's always, everybody's replaceable. So I don't have that same fear, but valid point.